Men and women reveal the truth about relationship space. Episode number 55. Today's episode of the Keep It 100 Girl Show is brought to you by Target. With cooler weather right around the corner, you know what? It's a perfect time to stock up on all the winter essentials. First up, Target is offering 50% off clothing, shoes, and accessories for the whole entire family. But this week, it's all about promo codes. So go ahead and grab a pen and paper because you're going to use the promo code FALLHOME to receive 25% off furniture, decor, dining. And you know what? If you start shopping today through Saturday, you get an extra 10% off. Use promo code KITCHEN to receive 25% off kitchen appliances and kitchenware just in time for the holiday season. It's less than 1 week left to Halloween. You can shop online or in-store for savings. For easy access to these Target shopping links, go ahead and look at all this information that I just talked about in the show notes. In fact, you could find them right now on your mobile phone. Or you can head on over to ninababel.com/podcast. And you know what? You just look for episode number 55 and you're straight. Start shopping.
Ghost.
Welcome back to the Keep It 100 Girl podcast, and you're listening to episode number 55. I'm your host, Nina Babel, and I help all you men and women celebrate embarrassment in your lives. I am your relationship hacker, leading and guiding you to make better decisions and having those open, ugly, awkward conversations with confidence. This podcast is more of a girl-friendly approach, keep it 100 flavor, where I help women to use their voices, use it with confidence. I encourage you all to be action takers because we grew up being shy, nervous, or embarrassed to ask the easy breezy 1, 2, 3 questions. I share what women and men are thinking but not saying out loud in an unapologetic way. Girly Nation, are you ready to keep it 100?
Keep it 100? Keep it 100 on here. We're keeping it 100.
Keep it 100.
My hand is raised. How about yours? In last week's episode, I talked about why she hates online dating. Other than the male to female ratio, which we all know is ridiculously true online, it's evident there's a whole lot of men who don't have their act together. Admittedly, it's a process of elimination, right? Where you feel rejected, dismissed, and nexted multiple times. So in last week's episode of Morning Sip, I talked about relationship weight and how it's real. The happy pounds are inevitable on both sides. It's a mix of enjoying eating together, cuddling instead of exercising, and the end result is we're not trying to impress each other anymore. But go ahead and check it out. You're going to look for episode 53 and 54. So today we're talking about relationship goals and self-care combined into all one topic. It's about being honest with yourself and then communicating that to your partner on a regular basis through relationship space. Relationship space means a whole lot of things, which we're going to cover today. You know, people often view relationship space as a compromise, right? It means we have to give up something or lose part of ourselves to make the other person happy. When it comes to relationship space, it really isn't. It's about keeping the relationship healthy. Today's conversations are opinions and real-life personal experiences from women and men in relationships and marriages who value their relationship space. The key is really to create that QT time, quality time with your other half by giving them the space that they need.
If I don't hear anything like in the last month that you've done with your friend, it's like, shut it down.
That's what you find a lot of times. Like, I know, like, with my boyfriend, he's not out in the club type person.
He is what he is. That's the definition of needy. That I don't have time to help you do this or help you do that. Figure it out.
If you're an entrepreneur and your spouse is not, and you're married, its problems.
You have to let them be.
In today's episode, you're going to hear 5 things. Number 1, women and men talk about keeping those friendships of the opposite sex or knowing when to cut them off for good. Number 2, relationship space rules. Number 3, insecurities and how they affect relationship space. Number 4, red flags, the dreaded words that signal space issues. Number 5, feeling alone and satisfied. We enjoy being alone opposed to feeling lonely. Relationship space, is he or she all up in your grill? It's learning to keep it 100 with no filters about having space. More importantly, relationship space. It changes at different stages and ages of any relationship. It doesn't mean we're closing the door, but the necessity to just want to decompress now and again.
Being married as long as I have, I've been married for going on 21 years, going on 22 years. The relationship changes. And, it goes from really, really good to really bad to really good to okay to really good again. Almost as with any other relationship, if you want to be in it more than you don't want to be in it, I think it's worth it, and I think that's the good part of it.
From my own personal experience, there's really nothing more suffocating than being scolded for having a life of your own outside of the relationship. Let's keep it real. Space, to me, is a healthy ingredient to a relationship. Most of the times, it does scare the other person because, the normal reaction is we think it's a cover for saying that it's over. Common phrases or triggers that give both men and women anxiety are like, we're moving too fast, I need space, I need a break, I just want to be friends, I need to think, he or she is too needy, I'm going out with friends, or conversely, you're all booed up, you're in boot up mode, especially in the fall and winter, and you cancel repeatedly on all your friends. The end result is it hits a nerve with everybody, and it really shouldn't. It's good, healthy, normal, and necessary. And for me, the last thing I want is to be joined at the hip with anybody. Trust. So let's talk to female, married, engaged, single women and really see how they do. Sade is in her 20s, married with 1 daughter. She admits to not having many friends, but her husband is the one who has the circle of friends. The understanding she and her husband have with each other in terms of relationship rules is, look, you can go out, I'll give you the space, but you can't be too excessive with it.
And we should bring the joy from our separate lives together as one. I really don't have too many friends, which is my choice, but my husband does. And I give him the free will. However, he needs to not be excessive with it. So, for example, let's just use this weekend. If he wanted to go out tonight, perfectly fine. He cannot go out Saturday night. It makes sense? Also, what we try to do is you don't check cell phones. You just have to just trust that when they're out there, they represent you well. So if he's out and not representing you well, then you need to be concerned. But you have to let them enjoy their friends.
In her world, it helps with her marriage. And I'll let her explain on how it does.
It brings conversation, it brings enjoyment, and it just also makes them realize that you want them to see them happy as well. And if that's being with their friends for a few hours, fine. But they have to make time for home. Priority.
Now, let's see how her point of view differs versus when she was in her 20s. Her response sent kind of a smoke signal.
No, I've always been like that because I've always put myself in the person's shoes. Would I not want my spouse to not let me hang out? Would I not want my spouse to not trust in me when I'm with my girlfriends? So I implemented that part. That was one of the morals that I wanted in my relationship, where it doesn't matter what you had before, but you do have to be cautious of the friends too now, because if they're all single friends and he's married, that can be a bad influence. However, you want to encourage that they now encourage, not force, encourage that they go and find male mates that are also in a similar situation as themselves. But you should be able to keep your outside friends. But guess what? They should also become your husband's or your wife's friends. Not say they got to pick up the phone and say, hey, but if they want to hang out, it should be okay. Because really, your husband's friends are really your friends.
Personally, I've always had close platonic relationships with my male friends. Once they got married, the friendship changed, right? And it was daunting because I realized I was constantly being put on hold until they got divorced. And then we just picked up where we left off. Due in part to their wives having an issue with us continuing our friendship, or even just the closeness of our friendship they didn't want to continue. Or lastly, and let's keep it real, let's keep it 100, they were jealous of the closeness that I had with them because they necessarily didn't have that same connection. So I asked this group of ladies, look, what are your relationship rules that don't get shared with your other half?
We as females, we tend to want to hold on to those relationships, whereas with the guys, they draw that line in the sand. Because once that female says, I'm not comfortable with it, most times, you won't hear from them. You know what I'm saying?
Until they're divorced.
Right. Yeah, until they're divorced.
Which is the case.
So then it's like, okay, why am I going to cause this turmoil in my relationship? When the reality is, once you find somebody, for the most part, it's not going to even be a question because guys don't do it. You know what I mean? They don't. If they know that their women have a problem with it, most times they're like, they might text you like every couple months, like, you okay? You know what I mean? But I think that you won't. If he's serious about that woman, you won't really get that call.
Girl boundaries. This means that women will always maintain friendships, right? But we set boundaries so we don't rock that boat, right? That boat where we live in with our partner.
And I realized for me that it's not because they don't still love me to death. It's just like, you gotta live with her. Just like I have to live with him.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, my friend will be like, what's a good time to call you?
That's how it should be.
If you're going to call me and say, what's up, don't call me early as crap in the morning. If you're going to call me around lunchtime. Hey, girl, what's up, blah, blah, blah. We chat for a little bit. After that time when you know I'm home or chilling with my family, do not call my phone.
Right.
Do not.
So as a female, having male friends is often used against us. And we end up getting penalized for it. Do you realize that? There's an unspoken rule among women that you don't share anything about your male relationships. In the next clip, the consensus among these women is you don't share everything. And that's something I learned later in life, not from women, but from one of my guy friends. Take a listen.
I do not.
Okay. What's your reason? Just curious.
My reason?
Because you don't want to stir the pot?
Right, I'm not. So,
are there things that you just don't share? Like, I'm just curious when you're married.
I'm sorry, it's things that you don't share.
Yeah. You have to be very cautious. You cannot say everything.
You're supposed to tell them everything.
You're not. No, you're not.
Bull crap.
No, I agree.
Always be arguing.
You're not.
Because they can take it when it's them, but when it's you, it's totally different. Mm-hmm. Men are not as strong as we are.
She's
right.
You
can say, okay, well, who cares? Them automatically in their mind, every man we've ever seen us
is a threat.
They want to have sex with us.
Right. Yep.
Period. I don't care who it is. And they all think that if you have a male friend, it's because they tried to talk to you before.
They don't believe you didn't sleep together or none of that.
And,
right. Or we can't be platonic friends, right?
Full disclosure, I've only screwed up once. And we're talking like once out of 30. Where I crossed the line with one of my male friends, and frankly, it distanced our friendship. And, it wasn't the same after. But there's some connections you just have with people. It's natural, and there's no sex attached to it, which guys really have a hard time believing, but that's another story. So my friends and I talked about this connection, or we labeled it as intimacy, without the real intimacy. Believe me?
The reality is, when you think about it, as a woman, most men that you have became friends with have tried to talk to you. Or sleep with you before.
No, not with me.
No,
I draw the line. And I've had
It's not a thing about drawing the line. It's a thing of where they're attracted to you in the beginning.
You know what?
I would say it's an intimacy that may not necessarily be sexual, but it's an intimacy that can be threatening to a man.
Yes.
Yeah,
Because I've experienced that where I've had friendships with guys, and maybe we never want to sleep together, but we have inside jokes, we have little things, we talk to each other every day, like my friend Harold in New York, and guys get really threatened by that because it's a form of intimacy that they're not a part of.
Setting boundaries is a common courtesy to Tina in her marriage. She's in her 30s and has been with her husband close to 10 years now.
And my husband, we've set boundaries for every stage of our relationship, including when we were dating. But it's a common courtesy, but it's a boundary that we have now is, my husband knows he has anger issues. However, I've only seen him go completely over the top. Maybe once we've been married. We've been together over 8 years now, maybe a couple times. But he knows that. So you have to be honest about who you are yourself. So we have a boundary where if he says, "Babe, I need a minute," that means let me take a minute, let me go wherever I need to go, cool off, pray, read some scriptures, cuss out, scream, and talk about love. Let me go and do whatever I need and take my time so that I can come back and handle you with the love and the respect and the honor that God would want me to handle you with. And I let him do that. Now, sometimes we both mad, and sometimes I keep pressing, but I've learned that it only makes the situation worse. And we both did. Sometimes I tell you, look, I need a minute. And sometimes we both want to press because you want to, but it's better when you upset. Sometimes you say stuff that you don't mean, or you may say something that you do mean, but it still was not the time to say that or the way to say it. You know what I'm saying? You say things, you may say it. You can bring up a person's fault, but bring it up to them in love and get a completely different response. But if I'm angry with you and I bring it up, it ain't gonna be in love. It's gonna be I'm throwing it in your face.
Not giving a person space really speaks to their levels of insecurity, if you don't realize it or not.
I think that it's very important for people to give their partners the space that they need, that they require. It's healthy. I agree with you. It's completely healthy.
Yeah.
And anybody who has issues with that, to me, that speaks to the level of insecurity that they have.
So insecurities play a huge role and infringe on the mechanics of any marriage. And Stacy describes how it affected her situation, which ended up in divorce.
That's where marriages fail, is because you don't even know how to task both.
Like have the relationship space?
And have your space. Have the relationship and have your space. We didn't know how to do it. Well,
who had it or who used it?
But here goes the thing. We both, I think insecurity on both would, what's the word? Infringe on it. Like if I went to a happy hour after work, he would just be thinking it worse. And there's nothing like that happening. I'm actually at a happy hour after work. And then it's like he would have to retaliate based upon what because if I'm doing something, you're going to do something, but you don't even know what I'm doing. So I'm not even doing anything. And so here's where I think one of the things I do know about with one of his friends, Allie's wife, they lived in Glen Burnie, and he was cool with Allie's wife. And then we went over there one time and hung out, and it was a cookout, and Allie's wife friend was eyeing him. So now he and Allie's wife are cool, so of course she's telling him, my friend likes you. Now, as somebody who was a fiance at the time, you should do better. That's messy. So then she's helping him. So while I'm out there, and the thing is, Shane doesn't like happy hours. She didn't want to hang out. So while you're there being, mad or whatever, or assuming whatever, you get into these conversations with her about what her friend wants to do to you. And then eventually you and the friend exchange number, and y'all are emailing, and yes, I saw the email. And it was one day he was going out. He claimed he was going out with Lorenzo. And I just happened to see Lorenzo that morning on my way out. And I made it nonchalant, and I was just like, I don't think he had gotten to him yet. And I said, Lorenzo, so what you up to tonight? And that's when he was dating actually my friend. And he was just like, yeah, me and, damn sure I can't remember her name right now, are going to hang out. And I was like, oh. And I confirmed with her. So how's Shane going out with him? What are you hanging out with? So that evening when he get ready to go, I was like, I think you should call Lorenzo first because he's over so-and-so's house. I don't think he knows he's going out with you. Oh, well, we had canceled. So who are you going out with, Shane? You don't have no friends? He didn't go anywhere. But, okay, we're busted, and now this very awkward moment is happening where you're not admitting what you're doing. I know what you're doing, but I don't know what to do with that information. And then we go on day by day acting like what didn't happen last week. And that's where relationships break down because we're not really talking about what just happened. What just happened? Why? What caused it? And it took me years afterwards to really sit down and go, my actions of this were your reactions to it. And if we had just talked about it, we could have still been married today.
The double standard. When it comes to managing a relationship space with those male and female friends that were there from the beginning, I mean, way in the beginning, before you met your partner.
They have females that are the same exact way. But you
can't do that. Yeah.
So what happens when you marry him and his past female friends, huh?
When I marry you, I don't become your babysitter. And I'm going to be with you. I need to be able to trust you. If I can't trust you, I don't need to be with you. Right? So when I have kids, I'll have kids. I'm not marrying you, to babysit you. I see some women who feel like once they get with this person, they don't want him to be with any other woman because you don't know your damn mind. Right. How you think for the rest of his life, he's just supposed to not associate or make friends with anybody else? Sex, you're crazy. And you're insecure. And let me see, you have an issue that you need to deal with. And maybe you're not ready to be married. Right. Personally, what I feel.
For women, what is the rule of thumb for past male friends or exes to avoid or keep in your circle? Conversely, you need to push individuals who don't have any concept of relationship space.
I know the relationships in my life that I probably should not have in my life. There are certain exes in my life that if I see them, something may go down, right?
Right. No respect.
And my husband, we talked about these people, so he may remember the names or not, but I don't need my husband to police me either, because he's not my babysitter either. As somebody who, values my marriage and the trust in my marriage, I'm going to cut off every person in my life who I feel like could potentially be a threat to my marriage, right? He's the same way. So there are some ex-boyfriends that I'm still friends with. That I'm friends with on Facebook. We talk. I had an ex-boyfriend that I probably would have married if God had stepped in and said it ain't the one, right? That he's married now too. That he just recently moved to DC. I'm planning on me, my husband, him, and his wife meeting up and hanging out. I don't see an issue with it because I know that he's not one of those type of people that's a threat to my marriage. I know that when I was dating Marcus was on the same page. Marcus and I never had sex. So I know that now on the flip side, sometimes you get somebody who you think you can be around.
When you cross the line with women, Tina learned her lesson and enforced her relationship rules.
There was a guy who was kind of like on the fence, right? It was kind of like, it could go either way. And he came and he visited DC. So he was like, okay, let's go hang out. So we went out and had coffee. Listen, it wasn't no long, it wasn't no turkey, it wasn't no tongue. He just, and I pulled away, that was it. You will never have access to me again in your life. Yeah. Because clearly, you don't value your marriage enough, and you don't respect me and mine. That was it. Did I ever tell my husband no? Because I didn't want to go through all that bullshit. But I knew as a woman, my husband didn't have to check me. After that, he sent text messages, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to offend. Nah, boo, that's it. You crossed that line. right? And so there are people that my husband is not friends with on Facebook. We'll be talking about ex-girlfriends and stuff that happened back in the day. And I'm like, show on me on Facebook. He's like, no, baby, we not Facebook friends. I'm not friends with her on Facebook, but I can try to find her so you can see what she looked like. But we both know who we should have in our lives.
She's got a real friendship.
And that's a trust that we have. I don't, like I said, the first thing I'm not your babysitter, but I trust you enough to have the common sense to know who you can let in and who you let in and out of your life.
Some women abandon their friends when they enter into new relationships.
And that's their problem, because how you start their marriage, that's what's going to set the precedent for your marriage and your relationship. That's their fault. I mean, look, my husband and I, I know it don't look like it. Right now, my eczema's flipping out and I'm peeling everywhere. It's hard to put makeup on. But normally,
I saw that.
Normally, I'm the type, hair's always done, nails always done, always on point. Wear weave a lot. When I met my husband, I had weave, I had full face makeup, nails and toes, and all this kind of stuff. Well, I'm not my husband's type. My husband's not my type. It really was one of them situations where we just knew that was the person God had for us.
It's all because of the paper.
I know. You know why people think that. They can go into a marriage and think that automatically, just because of the paper, now you're my property or whatever. I'm over you, so now I can tell you what to do and how to look and how to just. No. And that wasn't me before. You didn't marry that person, so you married me with the intent of changing me. And it's an old story. People just think they can do that. Just change folks.
The dreaded words. Heather is married in her 40s. Her husband has no friends. These women discuss the men they attract over and over. So I asked them, look, what questions are you not asking in order to break this cycle?
Yeah, that's what I told my husband, because he with the touchy-feely thing, he has no friends. He doesn't hang around anybody. I'm his friend. I'm his hangout person. I'm his entertainer. So
But that wasn't a red flag too, because that's a red flag for me when I meet a guy. If he has no friends.
I just had that discussion with a girlfriend of mine that my new criterion is, because I attract guys with no friends.
Is that a cancer thing?
Or I think it is, because we tend to be very open and nurturing and socially, we are life party, okay, inclusive, bring everybody in, and I attract the guys who are socially awkward, or they aren't socially awkward, but they just don't really have friends. It's just not their thing. They tend to be more introverted, and I'm like, how do I keep attracting these guys? I finally figured out that it's because when I ask them certain questions, I'm not asking about their friends. And so now I'm asking about their friends, and if I don't hear any names or anything I'm going out with my boys this week, or I'm going out to a drink with my friend, or I'm going over to my friend's house to help them, if I don't hear anything in the last month that you've done with your friend, it's shut it down.
There is such a thing as too much space, though. Heather, who's in her 40s, used to travel 80% of the month and realized, look, she had too much relationship space in her marriage.
I knew he didn't have friends. I knew he used to have friends. He told me when he used to go to clubs and hang out with these guys and do this and do that and, all this stuff, that regular stuff. But at a certain point in his life, he wasn't doing it anymore. And then when I met him, he wasn't doing any of that. He's not a club goer. He doesn't go out, and I didn't think anything of it.
Hobbies?
No, he has no hobbies, and it's not like he stops me. He never has stopped me from doing any of the stuff I do. I mean, when we first met, I had a job. I was traveling every week, week in, week out. So I was never home. I would come home every other weekend, twice a month. For the first, 3 years of our marriage. Oh, wow.
This is the biggest double standard of them all, especially for professional women. It's okay for men to have those careers where they travel over 50% of the time, but not for women.
I knew that he never said he had a problem with it, but I knew he was okay, can you find something local? And so he just never said anything, but I knew that was there. So I found something local, so that's how it's been the last year.
All right, so the biggest red flag for me, or the dreaded words that kind of trigger a nerve internally before a relationship even starts, is when a guy has little to no friends. Guaranteed, his world is going to revolve around yours. It's very telling to me that the person is not comfortable with themselves. We need space to grow, to learn, and pursue interests outside of our partner. And you know what? All of this adds fuel back into the relationship. So when you're infringing on my space, I got nothing to give back because I'm annoyed. My formation. All right, Girly Nation, I'm getting ready to launch 2 ebooks if you haven't noticed, right? Because I've been plugging it for the last couple of weeks. But more importantly, I'm coming out with version 2 of The Friggin' Truth. And I know you listeners out there have downloaded this ebook, which I gave you a little girl-friendly tips. I gave you some major key alerts, some heads up, and more importantly, some girl high fives. You'd be really surprised what most women get wrong. So this is the deal. You got to be an early bird and get on the list. When you get on the list, you will get notified of the official launch. And this is the next step. You got to send Nina an image of your receipt and a photo of yourself holding the book in exchange for access to exclusive content, you all, such as webinars and a private Facebook group just to start. You got to get on the list first. So grab your pen, grab your phone, and write down this link. You're going to visit bit.ly/get on the list. Is that easy breezy 1, 2, 3? The clingy, or Klingons as I call them. So earlier, our conversation was about having too much space and how we make those adjustments. So let's flip the script and talk about those situations where you have too little. We met Heather earlier and she says, you know what, her husband doesn't go anywhere without her. No judging allowed. His saving grace is he's not a homebody, he's extroverted, and in most cases, he's the life of the party. But Heather just wishes he had his own thing.
Even all the time when I wasn't there, I would say, because we used to have like season tickets, right? To the basketball game, whatever. And if I'm not there that weekend and there's a game, I'm like, why don't you go? I always say, why don't you go? Why don't you ask your the friend he talked about at work or whatever. Why don't you ask him and why don't y'all go? He'll never do it. He'll one day he'll play like, okay, I'll ask. He won't go. He just won't go. He'll sell the ticket, give it away or whatever. So I try to get him to go do something, but I just came to the conclusion he's just not the type that has is a go-getter that wants to do more than go to work, come home, go to work, come home. Otherwise, we're not homebodies. We're always gone doing something. So if I'm not doing what I'm doing, we're doing stuff together. So he's not a homebody. He's a very sociable person. He would walk in the room and everybody knows Sean. Sean's the life of the party. He's talking, he's this, he's that. He's like, he talks so much that it irks me. That's, you know what I'm saying? When someone talks so much, he's a talker. Yeah. You know, so sometimes I'm like, okay, can we change the subject? Or okay, can walk away to end the conversation. But anyway, he's a lively, very outgoing person. So he's not an introvert by no means. So because of that, then I don't have a problem with it. I wish that he would have his own thing, whatever that thing is, a hobby or something. But I just realized after 5 years that that's just not him. Yeah.
All right, so let's be clear, because needy is a first cousin to clingy. Being needy intrudes on any relationship space. And these entrepreneurial women describe what it's like being an entrepreneur, married to a needy husband, or just dating a non-entrepreneurial-minded male.
That's the definition of needy, that I don't have time to help you do this or help you do that. Figure it out. He's not touchy-feely, but he sometimes, I think, is needy. I'm not needy, but I'm very independent.
What does needy mean to you, though?
No,
it is what it is.
It's needy.
Yeah, it
because
is.
you feel bad saying about a man. But most men are needy.
They are. That's their nature.
He does. When someone was saying, "Oh he does all this stuff for me," he does everything. I don't wash dishes.
Yeah,
I don't cook. I don't wash his clothes. I don't do any. He does it all. I just clean the house, keep it straight or whatever. He's the one that goes to the get the groceries and stuff. He does all that stuff. And so, but I don't know, there's something when he does want something, I'm like, oh my God, can you do it yourself? I'm thinking to myself, because I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And I got this list of 20 things and I'm working on number 5 and you want me to help you do whatever. So I'm like, can't you just figure it out on your own?
Her first marriage was in her 20s after her mom died. So I asked Peyton, well, what's the difference between your younger 20-year-old self versus now when it comes to relationship space?
Even when I was married, my husband, I'm like, the club, because I was young, club let out at 2 o'clock. You should be here by 2:45. You can go where you want, but don't be disrespectful. So
what's disrespectful to you?
Disrespectful is you coming in my house at 5:30, 6 o'clock. If the sun beats you home, where was you at? Because nothing was open. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. So where are you?
Are you listening? Damn.
Now let's look at his or her tactics, his expectations versus hers, and the reverse. He's looking at it from the protector point of view, making sure she's taken care of, which leads to him protecting or overprotecting Peyton's relationship space.
I'm not his mother, so I don't give him anything. I don't want him to think that, because I'm going to go when I want to go. Like, I tell him, like, I always give him that courtesy, like, babe. Like, even like for this weekend, I was like, babe, I was like, Em asked me to go, on a trip with girls. And he was like, oh, okay, his concern was like, okay, how are you going to get there? How are you going to take? I'm like, we got this, babe. we got this. You know what I mean? I think now it's more because I'm pregnant, but, I would say sometimes when, what bothers me is how, how you'll be like in the house chilling with your man and you get all comfortable and then you're like, oh, this is going to be a nice, just relaxed day. And then you're like, okay, I'm like.
Let's ask Vernon about his expectations when it comes to relationship space. After all, he's been married over 20 years. And he offers the good, bad, and ugly.
I think it's good at times. And, as with any relationship, I think you have to work at it. And especially with marriage, I think you have to work at it harder than you do anything else. Because although divorce is an option, separation is an option, you really have to work at making the relationship successful, finding common ground that you can communicate on, finding things that you have in common, sacrificing parts of yourself that you're okay with sacrificing. So, for instance, you have to put things in priority. Instead of doing something for yourself, you may have to decide to sacrifice and do something with your significant other, even if you're not in the mood necessarily, or finding things that you can do together. Just because it makes communication easier, it makes dealing with a relationship a little easier, and I think it helps as far as just the overall mood of the relationship if one person, at least one of the parties in a relationship, is the one that's focused on making sure that things are good, I suppose.
The bad part of relationship space.
The bad is when you're not on the same page, when you can't communicate clearly, when you hold on to grudges, that kind of stuff. Especially in business, if you move over to the entrepreneur side. If you're an entrepreneur and your spouse is not, and you're married, it's problems. It's problematic. Still problematic for me at times. The spouse tries to be supportive but doesn't understand the vision, and that's okay, but as long as they don't get in your way. The bad part of it is having to deal with other people's shit, and depending on how long you've been in the relationship, you know, sometimes the stuff that you have to deal with, you know, it's childhood stuff. It's stuff that person hasn't dealt with and that they throw on you, or as you evolve, as you turn into a different person, as you develop, you know, in your relationship, especially once you cross the 40-year-old threshold. I think after 40, things start to change, at least from a relationship and a toleration standpoint. Is that really a word? What you will tolerate, what you won't tolerate, what you feel is valid, what you feel is not valid. Wanting to, or I guess being tolerant of the silliness that can happen in relationships, the pettiness. I mean, that's the bad part of it, is that when you start getting frustrated with that, it affects other part of the relationship. And for a lot of couples, I believe it ends up ending the relationships. For me, it has not. But I mean, there have been times where, you know, things get real and you have those, you know, come to Jesus conversations about being happy.
Your tolerance levels. Vernon explains you gotta know what they are. Your well-being and feelings are important.
After a certain age, and I think it just takes living to get there, you don't feel like being unhappy, especially with someone that you have to spend your time with and that you're intimate with, and all of the things that go along with that. You just don't want to be unhappy. And so being unhappy is not something that I want to be. It's not something that I tolerate. Being unsatisfied is not something that I tolerate anymore. Fully communicating that, and it's not that you disregard the person's feelings, but you put your well-being and your feelings first. And although it doesn't necessarily maybe sound like a negative, it can be somewhat negative depending on how the other person takes it. But I think if you explain yourself, even though it's kind of a negative, it can come out positive. I guess all of it, quite honestly, it just requires work. The ugly is just when the person that you're with won't let go of things and they don't know how to apologize. Not necessarily speaking from experience, personal experience, a little bit, but I've seen a lot of that with other married folks that I know, where the apologies are half-hearted, and so is the sincerity for when they're sorry, or, you know, just not communicating at all. That's the ugly part of it. I think the problem is that so many people don't understand how to apologize, and they don't want to fully admit that they're wrong. What they want to say is, well, if you took this way, it's not the way that I meant it. So if you feel that way, then I'm sorry you feel that way, and it was not my intention to hurt you. That's not an apology. An apology is, I'm sorry that hurt you. Understand that I would never intentionally hurt you, but I am sorry that what I said hurt you, and I'm sorry that I put it that way, and it won't happen again. It's not a if you took it this way kind of thing. That's the kind of thing that pisses me off.
Agree to disagree. It's not worth arguing with your best friend.
So the relationship that I'm in now is different in the fact that he's very protective. And when we initially started, dating, I was like, sir, you're not going to be able to tell me what to do. But that goes back to what we were talking about, and having a man that can lead without making you feel like, he's trying to control you. Mm-hmm. Because the person can say, I really want you to go. And you're like, okay, I understand. We disagree. You know what I mean? And it's okay.
Versus you can't go.
Yeah. And with me and him, we have this thing where whenever we have a talk or argument or we disagree before we go somewhere, I'll be like, okay, we disagree. It's okay. Like when he starts to get all around, I'm like, no, it's okay. We don't have to agree.
Right.
We don't have to. I'm going, and you know, at the end of the day, well, he's old-fashioned in the way that he don't want me to go to school after it get dark. He don't want me to pump my gas by myself. So if I'm on my way home and I'm about to run out of gas, what am I supposed to do? You know? Like, at the end of the day, you're like, sorry, I'm going to the gas station.
Right.
You know, but he doesn't like me out really at night. Like, if I'm out with my girlfriends, he's fine with that. But if I say, because I'm an introvert, I would go to dinner by myself. I would have a drink. I would go to the movies by myself. He hates that.
It comes down to picking your battles and what's worth it to you.
I think it's just a respect thing. I respect when he's like, don't go out at night, wait for me. Certain things, I'll sit there and I'll be like, you know what, you do not need that right now. It's not even worth the argument. What are you arguing about a bag on shopping change for? It's not worth it. Stuff like that. But when I was younger, honey, you couldn't tell me nothing. The minute you was like, you can't, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. You can't tell me anything. Mm-hmm. But like you said, it's a growth thing. It's a thing when you realize you just gotta pick your battles and is it really worth it to you? Because when I look at it, most things is not worth arguing with my best friend.
Feeling alone can really lead to loneliness. Stacy mentioned when she was married that looking back, you know what? Her husband was really trying to communicate that he wanted her time.
Even when I went to school, went back to University of Maryland. Oh, he threw that in my face. I let you go back to school, and you didn't. And it was my turn. Just when it was my turn, we were divorcing. There was something like that. When I used to come home from school, and sometimes classes out because you have to do it after work. So class would be 6 to 10.
Yeah.
And I would get home, and she would purposely cook a one-person meal.
Now we just need to cut the pie crust into strips.
Like literally half a can of corned beef and cabbage and rice so he could eat. Yeah, I'm talking about petty. So he wasn't supporting the school. But then when we had I graduated and we had a lunch and I was thanking everybody at the table, I really thanked one of my friends, Liz, because in them late hours when I'd be up doing papers like 2 a.m. And she's not at school or anything. That's why I'd be talking to her on the phone or texting. Just somebody awake with me through this experience. And he threw it back in my face during our divorce that I didn't even thank him. I said, thank you, Shane, I would be honest. You left me during that time. You didn't even support me.
That's so cute.
You let me come home hungry.
So here is our little pie.
You wouldn't even check in on me at school. Did you even know what my schedule was?
Right, because you're coming home late.
Yeah, you left me.
So in any relationship or marriage, you're bringing two imperfectly perfect people together. And in order to make that perfect relationship, or at least strive for it, space is good. When you're apart, when you go to work, it just gives you that something to bring to share in your lives. Make it more interesting.
I need it.
Right.
Like there are times when, aside from doing anything with other women, there are some times where I'm like, babe, I need some time to myself, and I will get a hotel room for the weekend. And and chill out. And he has done the same thing. Like he has his guy friends. It's just whatever you feel like you need for your relationship to be healthy. I know that
whatever works with
we balance each other out. We're very different, but sometimes that can get on your nerves. I'm very free-spirited. I'm very, my husband is very analytical. He's very organized. He's very boom, 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 boom. And sometimes I'm like, look, you're gonna get on my last nerve. I just need to go somewhere where I don't see you right now. And that's okay. I would rather let him go take his time and do whatever he needs to do than to have him half crazy. And now the tension in the house, you could cut it with a knife. Yep. Why do that?
Everyone's situation is unique, but the common thread is that it's necessary, it has positive outcomes on their relationships. A lot of us struggle to create that space for ourselves. Space allows us to be more effective. And conversely, when we don't have it, we're not our true selves.
Some people want to be together all the time. For he and I, he likes being alone too, by himself. Like when he comes home from work, he has a very stressful job in security. He works for Homeland Security, so it's very stressful. So when he comes home, he doesn't really want to talk. He'll talk about his day on the way in.
He'll decompress.
And he does it every day, and I have to sit there and listen. But once we get in the house, then we go our separate ways. Because he wants to. Like you said, he still wants to decompress. So he gets his wine or does whatever he has to do. And then once he settles and changes his clothes, then we'll talk or whatever. And I know he's good. But he has to relax and get all that off of his chest.
If you don't learn how to be alone, you'll never enjoy relationship space. That's what it boils down to.
When we talk about space, if I want to be by myself, I'll just go to another room. And same with him. If we want to watch a show or whatever together, then we'll be in the same room. Otherwise, we're in separate rooms if I want to be by myself. So I don't feel like...
Why do you feel like you want to be by yourself?
That's a good question.
I just like being alone. Sometimes it's so much... so many things I have to do and so many things I'm thinking about that I just want to be somewhere where there's quiet, where I don't have to be in a conversation with a person.
Don't become drained or make your relationships draining. The motto for space is to increase our ability to give throughout the relationship. And that wraps up another episode of the Keep It 100 Girl Show. Your go-to girlfriend is here to empower you every week, ladies. The best conversations, they happen after each podcast. I bring socially and sexually awkward taboos out in the light that most of us only share with our girlfriends. I talk to listeners like I talk to my own girlfriends with advice about failures, successes, embarrassing choices, and aha moments that put us all in check. We women tell the truth, nothing but the truth, even if it's totally embarrassing or super cray-cray. Reply to this podcast or send me a quick email at ask@ninababel.com. And you know what? Go ahead and share what you're struggling with right now. New episodes of the Keep It 100 Girl Show drop every Tuesday on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and now iHeartRadio. Connect with me on social. You got Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and the Keep It 100 Girl Facebook page. You can link with me using the handle @NinaBabel. Well, that's it for this week, folks. You know I keep it 100. I keep it real. I keep it true. Smooches!
You can be the champion.